All right, guys. Here we go. Man, Arian, it's already what, May? End of May. Coach Arian just celebrated his 37th birthday yesterday. Happy late B-Day, Coach Arian. We're diving into our, I believe, fourth support call. We've had a handful of really, really good support calls in the past 3 months. If you guys have not had the opportunity to dig into those are on our Behemoth Gym YouTube channel, and we cover a whole host of very, very awesome topics. Remember, on our newsletter each week, we'll send out some information about the support call. If you guys have any questions, any topics that you want covered, anything that's pertaining to health, fitness, wellness, longevity, nutrition, sleep, stress management, connection, training, whatever it might be within that realm, Coach Arian and I and our team are experts in the realm in the sense of tenure and experience in this game. So feel free to spit it out and we will do our best to cover it. And if we don't know the information, we'll do our best to do some navigation on the interwebs to get you guys the right information as we have the right resources. And I think that's what we're going to do right now is we're going to dig into a couple questions that we had from one of our members that came in. The first question that I think Arian and I will cover is foam rolling versus the Theragun. Which one is more beneficial or even better? And details as to which one we, the coaches, recommend for specific muscles. Now, for those of you guys that aren't familiar with foam rolling, we actually have a Behemoth foam roll routine that we've put out there. I've led you guys through it. Again, that's on our YouTube channel. We all know the foam roller. It's those big old black cylindrical items, relatively soft, somewhat firm if you've never been on one before, in the corner of our gym by our big metal B sign. If you've never used one, I strongly suggest that you get over there and you become acquainted with it. We'll actually link our foam roll routine. Arian talks a lot about foam rolling routine, and he has a really good approach to that. Those of you guys that don't know about the Theragun is actually this tool. And I'll share my screen real quick, but it is this like soft tissue tool that creates vibrations, and it is soft tissue release. And so it's almost like when you think about a jigsaw, and the motion of the jigsaw, except obviously there's not a saw on the end. There's like a rubber end where you can put it on specific areas of your body and it can release some tension. It could release some tightness. It could create some soothing sensations. And I think there's actually science behind the vibrations and how it connects with your nervous system and how it connects with your kind of proprioceptive awareness with your brain and your body. But what we'll do, just to give you a brief 1,000-foot overview of those two items, we had a question come in talking about one versus the next, which ones we feel is better or beneficial, and then also which ones we recommend specifically for specific body groups. And I think what we'll do in here first is we'll just kind of dive into thoughts on the foam roller or even the Theragun. Let's start with the foam roller. And what do you think about the foam roller and pros and cons?
I think it comes down to accessibility. One, I think the Theragun, obviously, for those of you who saw Asia's screen, you could see price point definitely is a lot higher. So a lot of times you're limited to what you have access to. There's some cool solutions within there, but yeah, I think when we look at it, it's great for just in general myofascial release. So when we think about like your muscles, the protective coating, the essentially the packaging in between the muscle and the skin, a lot of times, when you're sore or you're just doing some really general movement, like anything that we can do to kind of break up some of the adhesions or create better sliding surface direction can help with reducing soreness, kind of just improve temporary range of motion, give you a little bit more blood flow to the area. And when we look at kind of like warm up, I think foam rolling is such a great warm up because it's a very low metabolic demand. So it's not going to get you out of breath, but you can create some really, really good kind of general, site specific, almost like soft tissue massage, specifically if you're sore or if you have maybe something is not feeling like it should. I've been sitting down riding in a car. Sometimes it's hard to stretch certain areas. If you think about, just the principle of stretching, you're taking your muscles and you're, extending them by pushing into them. You can create kind of a similar, demand if that's something that is definitely up. And so, like I always love whenever I've taken people through kind of a foam roller routine, I always like to have people, like, just so you can feel the difference of, test out like an air squat, right? Test out an air squat. Big fan of like test retest, quad, hamstring, glute, just some general high level movement on one leg only, and then retest your air squat. Just tell, see if you can tell the difference. Now the downside is a lot of this, again, you're promoting that good blood flow. You're promoting some of the general warm up stuff. It's going to be temporary in nature. It's not like, hey, you have improved my quad and it's permanently better. But at the same time, if I can, in a short amount of time with a very, I guess, small amount of energy, create some really good additional movement, get some really good blood flow, get a little bit of a sweat going. Again, kind of rolling around on the ground is going to create a little bit of some core work, and just kind of let you be a little bit more mindful with some of the site-specific soreness or site-specific adaptation. It could really make a big impact. Or like, let's say we're squatting, or requires that leg to move a little bit better than it did before. And then once you finish, do the other leg and then retest. So it should be pretty clear. I mean, I don't know of anybody that I've taken through that hasn't noticed an immediate improvement in either just general feel, especially for people who sit down long periods of time, or maybe are coming back from movement, or even are just kind of feeling like they're a little bit beat up and sore. I just know it helps drastically for the amount of the return on the amount of investment that you're putting in for time and energy is pretty strong. Yes, Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, Arian covers
that's my take on foam roller.
Yeah, Arian covers some really good points on the foam roller. Just 1,000-foot overview. What he had mentioned is fascia, right? We have this very strong layer that kind of covers in between our skin and our musculature called our fascia. And I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of the snake oil magic, which is not snake oil magic, where somebody puts a lacrosse ball on the bottom of their foot. They bend over, they try to touch their toes, they can't do that. They put a lacrosse ball on the bottom of their foot, they roll through some of the fascia, and then all of a sudden they're able to touch the ground. It's because our fascia layers are connected all the way from our our head all the way down to our fingers. Aaron, you can go on mute. Hopefully there's not a girl in pain over there, but we have these fascial layers, and what the foam roller does, it helps release some tension, brings blood flow to surrounding areas, and it releases it breaks up scar tissue adhesions that might be balled up or tightened up or accumulating in this fascia. When we do training, regardless of how we're moving our body, whether it's strength training, whether it's fitness training, we create these things called micro perforations within our muscle tissues and our fascia lining that obviously over time build on up, and that's what creates more muscle mass. It creates stronger bodies, more capabilities. But over time, these accumulate adhesions and scar tissues and stuff like this, which could potentially lead to immobilities, inflexibilities, pain, discomfort, stuff like this. And the reason that we like the foam roller is because it is a short-term fix, in the moment style fix. And so if you notice how we talk about the foam roller, we talk about it in the sense of let's use it for recovery or let's use it for preparation. But the foam roller is not a tool to help you get the middle splits. If you're super stiff, right, and you're looking to accomplish a specific advanced mobility tactic or tool or whatever it might be, the foam roller is not going to be your friend. However, if you're looking to get into better, more ideal positions to press overhead or to squat or to deadlift or things of that sort, the foam roller can be great if you do it slightly beforehand to get some blood flow to the area, get the synovial fluid going in the joint and whatnot. And that's kind of what we're looking at as far as getting people into better positions and utilizing that tool pre-workout. Now, post-workout, that can actually do the same thing and can start the recovery process to those used musculatures, to those used body parts. And so the foam roller is a great tool so long that we have the perspective on using it as an in-the-moment style solution and not a forever style fix. So we give the foam roller definitely a thumbs up. Oftentimes people give them thumbs down, but I think it's all contextual. It's about how the foam roller is used and the expectations and approach and perception towards the foam roller, looking at it as an in-the-moment style fix in the sense that it's going to address certain things that might be going on. I'm coming from a long day of work, sitting in a car, sitting behind a desk, or maybe a long time sleeping. It's going to help wake the body up and get it going for movement, or help it cool down and help it recover. But it's definitely not a tool to use to drastically improve your flexibility, mobility, pain symptoms, whatever it might be. Oftentimes the foam roller kind of falls under that umbrella of muscle work, soft tissue work, active release therapy, deep tissue massage, whatever it might be, but it's also a less invasive approach to it. Now, when we think about, last thing I want to make before we talk about the Theragun, a point I want to make about the foam roller is how to use it effectively. Oftentimes when we see people using the foam roller, they're not using it effectively. They're putting it on their legs. They're just rolling up and back in an overextended position, laughing, joking, talking, not really getting much out of it. It's not to say that you can't do these things on the foam roller, but the way to use the foam roller is put it on specific areas where you feel discomfort. Where you feel discomfort is usually a body part or body signal saying, spend more time on me. When you find those areas, you want to create movement on those areas. So let's say that I'm rolling on my quadricep on the top of my leg, and I find something that's really uncomfortable. I actually don't want to deviate from that area. I want to stay on that area. I want to move as much as I can on that area in the sense of bending and extending my leg, rotating left to right, not just going up and back amongst one plane of motion, but I want to stay on that area, because what can happen is the more time I spend on that specific area, the more I'm giving my body the opportunity to release that tension in that area. And that could also go for your calf. It could go for your shoulder. It could go for your erectors on your lower back. It could go for your glutes. It doesn't necessarily matter. And then another key point when you're using the foam roller is breathing. Breathing is so, so critical. Your breath is literally at the center of all of your experiences. So if we're uptight, our shoulders are in our earlobes, we're breathing through our mouth, we're hyperventilating, we're panicking back and forth because there's so much discomfort, we're not going to really get much out of that session. Whereas if we're breathing through our nose, or we're exhaling, we're really focusing on elongating our exhale, we're tying into our breath with what's going on, you're actually going to give those signals to your nervous system to say, hey, this is safe, right? We can get into recovery mode. We can allow the body to relax. We can allow this specific area to relax. And that can actually give you a lot more bang for your buck when you're going on the foam roller. So thumbs up from the coach's staff on the foam roller, so long that you understand how that tool can be used. And when you're using it, find directed areas. Don't just go up and back, side to side, bend and extend, spend some time in that area, and then utilize your breath to help your nervous system release and relieve tension, because that's going to be your best tool when it comes to using the foam roller. Aaron, anything else you got on the foam roller specifically?
No, I like that. I've actually been kind of digging back into some of our toolkits. So in the same kind of category, I would put a foam roller. I would look at like a softball, like a lacrosse ball, like some of those more trigger point type balls. It falls into that more specific adaptation. But again, if you have a catch in your shoulder, that might be challenging to hit. I would look at a foam roller. You described it as a cylindrical tube, but it's kind of a broad brush when you think about some of the more like active pieces that we all kind of deal with from time to time. And so sometimes you do need something that is a little bit more of the idea of like a finger. And so like something that can be a little smaller, a little bit easier to manipulate, like a lacrosse ball, I would put in that same category, a little bit more preparation, fine brush that you have the ability to paint with. But yeah, 2 thumbs up on foam rolling if when done appropriate.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And I think it all comes back to understanding how to use it appropriately, and then also not treating it as this cure-all, because it's definitely not that, but it definitely has its purpose, and it can be a great tool as well. Last point, we strongly suggest that you guys, if you want to learn how to use the foam roller, come in early, chat with a coach. We'll drop the link to the foam rolling routine where I kind of walk you guys through what that looks like, but it's pretty much like 2 to 3 minutes long. We're working on pretty much head to toe, getting your body prepped for any movement for the day. Let's move into the Theragun. Aaron, I don't know a lot of science behind the Theragun, but what I know about like percussive therapy is what they would call that. It's that just repeated like back and forth. There is, I think, some pretty good research and science out there about how that tapping or that percussive therapy can create signals from the brain to body to enhance the actual physical sensation that's going on. So if we would look at the Theragun from like a 1,000-foot overview, the same way that we did with the foam roller, it falls under that same umbrella of deep tissue release, muscle work, active release therapy, whatever it is. The great thing about the Theragun, though, is it's, you take this, like Aaron was saying, this broad brush or the cylindrical tube of the foam roller where you can't really pinpoint areas with it. You're just kind of doing broad strokes on specific areas. And then you take this Theragun, which is essentially this like, 1.5 inch or maybe even 1 inch diameter like spot, and you can get deep within specific areas. So if you wanted to put it on your, patellar tendon because you have some, some tendinopathy going on your knee, or you want to put it on your tibialis, you want to put it on the bottom of your foot, specifically your heel, you can absolutely do that with the Theragun. But now you're going to get the benefit of that percussive therapy, which is just going to kind of go back and forth. And I think the technology has really increased with the Theragun. If I was showing you guys, I'll share my screen, but I was just on their website briefly, and I was looking at some of their tools and their evolution of their equipment. Right, in 2009, it looked like pretty much a jigsaw with a ball on it. Then it turned into what it is, and now like they're to the point where they're offering it can tie into Bluetooth and do some different cool things. But for the most part, I do believe that there's some decent science behind percussive therapy. But all in all, when we come back to like this overview of what the Theragun does, is it allows you to take a similar benefit of the foam roller, which is increased blood flow, which is, breaking up adhesions and scar tissue. It's going to give you that feel good feeling and sensation in the moment. It's going to relieve some pain, some discomfort, especially if you have it in a pinpoint specific area, but it's able to direct it to this one specific spot. So you can get probably deeper. You can increase the, I guess the intensity of the back and forth of the nodule or the head on it. And then also you have the convenience of like being able to sit in a chair like this, or like Aria's doing, like standing and address an area that you have instead of being on the ground. So there's a lot more convenience behind that tool. But then obviously with that comes a pretty massive investment. I think this tool goes for like $499 to $699. So it's kind of like the trade-off on what is the ideal piece for you. When you're looking at something like the foam roller, you're probably looking at maybe $20 to $30 versus this high-tech piece of soft tissue tool, the Theragun. Aaron, you have anything to say on the Theragun? Have you ever used one before? What are your thoughts on that, or what do you know about it?
So anecdotally, just looking at the way that it's set up and the way that you use it, I almost look at it as just a way for you to create more leverage for the same thing. So knowing that the biggest piece to make sure that you're getting something out of that foam roller is you can't just lay on top of it and just stay like stagnant. You have to be moving through, you have to manipulate tissue, you have to coerce this actual change by rolling or pushing or flexing or adjusting itself to create enough leverage, I guess, especially on property. And a lot of us will take a lacrosse ball and like lean against something. With something like a Theragun that allows you to put just a little bit of pressure, and then it provides the stimulus, that movement, that kind of, as you called it, the percussive, almost gyrations. I haven't heard anything scientific as to the gyrations. I just assumed it would be essentially on par with having somebody like essentially perform like a deep tissue massage to you that you can then take on yourself. And so I think for me, looking at both of these, it comes back into your ability to self-diagnose or self-care on what you feel like you need. I know for a lot of people, if budget is out of the question, or you're not willing to, make a jigsaw hand pump rig, starting with a foam roller and just understanding what it feels like to be like, I don't feel 100%, and here's why. And then being able to manipulate yourself through some type, whether you can create a lot of these patients by doing a contract and relax, like a PNF style, like norm, again, contract, relax. Some of these, more dynamic stretches, you can create a little bit more space or a little bit more comfort, whether it's for movement or for recovery. And I think it all kind of falls back into that. But I would lump, inside of more of the like kind of like bigger picture stuff, the simpler is foam roller, the kind of the next level up would be a little bit more site specific, something that looks like, the lacrosse ball, things like that. The next piece on top of that I love is the Voodoo Floss, like the ones that I typically reach for. Like those are the kind of go-to, but again, anecdotally, those are the ones that I feel most comfortable with. But essentially using a little bit of compression, a little bit of blood flow restriction, a little bit of a few other things to do some specific improvement. But again, it's just
Looks like Arian's cutting in and out. But he made some good points on that. And, you know, the final piece of that question was, you know, which one would we recommend most to our members? I think it really depends on the one that you're going to. Sorry, Aaron, you cut out and we missed you there. So I was just talking about the tool that is the best for the individual is the one that they will use the most. Obviously, foam rollers are free. They're at our gym. You can use them. But oftentimes, the reason that people don't use these tools, Arian mentioned lacrosse ball. We're talking about a literal lacrosse ball that they use in lacrosse. It's smaller, it's harder, it's more dense, but it can pinpoint specific areas. We talked about a softball. It's a little bigger. It's the same thing. It's pretty hard. It's pretty dense. Arian mentioned something called Voodoo Floss. It's really just like a, 10, 15 foot piece of like thin rubber that you can wrap around your specific area or joint, and you can increase blood flow to the area. But the whole concept behind all of these is to reduce pain, to reduce discomfort, to reduce soreness by enhancing blood flow and synovial fluid to that specific area. Because what we know about enhancing blood flow, it's going to bring oxygenated blood flow, and it's going to flush a lot of that nastiness, those scar tissue adhesions, a lot of the soreness and the tension to the lymph systems, and to kind of flush that out. That's why when you're super duper sore, we encourage you guys to move through as many full ranges of motion as possible, because it's going to get that blood flow going. And it's always why, oh, I'm super sore before I do that. And then afterwards, you're like, my God, I feel great. It's the same concept. But going back to this final question on which tool is better, it's the tool that you're going to use the most. And if you wanted my opinion, I would always, let me go back to, it's the tool that you're going to use the most. And I think what deviates people away from tools like this, or the Voodoo Floss, or the lacrosse ball, or the softball, is they're uncomfortable. And nobody wants to get onto these tools and experience that discomfort. And usually they're not breathing appropriately, so they're not making a lot of change. So in my opinion, I would always find a trustworthy massage therapist or active release therapist. And we have a lot on hand. So if you're looking for one of those, we have trustworthy resources that we can refer out. So just don't go to the joint down the street or go seeking, somebody to put their hands on you. You got to make sure that you're going through trusted resources. And we wouldn't recommend people that we haven't experienced ourselves to our group. Where I'm getting at is, my suggestion would always be finding a certified licensed practitioner that we have trust in to do this work for you. And this is something that I would recommend that you do, especially as active as you guys are, and the ranges of motion that you're moving your bodies through. I suggest that you guys do this at least, every 3 to 4 months, I would say not at least, but regularly then, but at least every 6 months, every once a year, just to kind of flush the body. And I'm somebody who, I don't mind investing in somebody who's trustworthy to do this on me, so I don't have to do it on my own. But then I also believe that we should all have this baseline understanding of how to perform some basic self-maintenance on ourselves, whether it is with a foam roller, whether it is with a Voodoo Floss, lacrosse ball, maybe it is with a Theragun too. And that's what we hope to get out of this by providing those educational videos that we have on our YouTube channel, so that you guys can take these things, you can become autonomous, you can come in early, you can stay after a little bit later, you can talk with the coach, and you can learn how to create this self-maintenance on yourself. The last point I want to make, because I was really curious about this as well, is what kind of makes the Theragun unique. And I went into their website and I looked at some of their FAQs. And so it's called percussive therapy. But the concept behind it is the percussion, the kind of frequency of the nodule going back and forth is supposed to override the pain signals to your brain, making the treatment experience more comfortable than manual muscle therapy. So compare utilizing something like the Theragun on a specific area that's really tender, tight, sore, whatever it might be. Those percussive back and forths are going to alleviate that pain signal to the brain, versus maybe laying on a foam roller at a specific area, or somebody like squeezing on a specific spot. And so I think that's a big benefit, it seems like, from the Theragun. If you're somebody who doesn't like discomfort, doesn't like pain, that could be a really cool tool to use. But it also talks about a couple of other different things that it does. But I think that's the whole concept behind the percussive therapy. And when you think about it, it's funny, but this relates to, we just took our son in and he had to give some blood, and they used at Quest this little tool called like Mr. Penguin or something. but they put it on his arm and it created a very similar percussive motion to where, because the back and forth was on his bicep, he essentially couldn't feel the needle into his arm. So it seems like that there is some good research and science behind that, and that Theragun isn't the only company that's utilizing that science. So in this case, when would you choose one versus the next? Choose the one that is going to be the one you use the most consistently. And if you guys can make the investment in buying something like a Theragun and you want to use that more frequently, rather than maybe utilizing a free foam roller at the gym and going through the foam roller routine, or hiring a licensed massage therapist, active release therapist, whatever it might be, it's kind of what you choose to do and kind of what floats your boat. All right, cool. We are a little bit past, but I did want to cover one thing. We had one more question that I think we can do relatively quick. The final question talked about our Behemoth benchmarks. Most specifically, let me get into the question. How do we decide which benchmarks Behemoth tests, and why are these specific tests apply best to our GPP program? This is a really great question, and it's going to give me the opportunity to kind of boast about our team and our coaches at Behemoth. So first things first, a lot of times people don't see behind the curtains of the level of work that goes into creating the GPP program that is the Behemoth GPP program. I am very proud to say that any level of fitness training, foundational fitness training that our coaches are doing, it is the GPP program. So all of our group leaders, all of our coaches are essentially doing the exact same work that you're doing. We're not doing anything different. Sure, Coach Arian likes to do knees over toe specific stuff. Sure, I like to play around with gymnastics work. Sure, Coach Trevor might like to do a little bit of powerlifting, but these are all supplementary to the foundational level of training that we're doing, which is essentially the same workouts that you guys are doing. There's a heightened level of work that goes into creating the workouts that you guys do each and every week. It's not just slapping something random that looks cool in combinations with different and random rep schemes every single week. We actually have a programming team here that's inclusive of myself, Coach Evan, and Coach Jonathan, in which we are testing workouts weeks before they end up on the Push Press app in class for you guys to do. And the reason that we're doing those things is, number one, we believe in our product. We want to make sure that we would never say or do anything that we wouldn't want you guys to do the same. And secondly, we want to make sure that we're testing these workouts to make sure that they are conducive and they're fitting for our group population. And I think that's the benefit of doing your own programming, which we take great pride in, versus maybe going out and purchasing a program. And I call it a lazy effort, but purchasing a program from somebody else who's creating a program with a different membership group, with a different clientele in mind. Now, circling back, when it comes to our benchmarks, there's a few principles that we truly believe in when it comes to the GPP program, but also the creation of our benchmarks. So when our programming team sat down to create our benchmarks, we kind of stuck to the roots of our principles. Principle number one is that we wholeheartedly believe in tempo, strength work, and we also believe in not testing one rep maxes. The general population of our group membership does not necessarily, we believe that they don't need to be testing one rep maxes, because it's not going to really translate to their everyday life. It's not going to translate to their training within the gym. And there's going to be a lot more risk versus reward than seeing how much weight we can physically lift for one rep off of the ground, or press overhead, or clean off the ground, or squat on our back. Sure, those things are cool and all, and they are more party tricks than anything. But where the bang for our buck is going to come into play is doing things like 3 reps, 5 reps, and even maybe 5 reps with tempos, right? Because tempo work is going to build stronger connective tissue, stronger joints. It's going to increase our time under tension, which is going to build stronger muscles and create more muscles. Plus, it builds more body awareness. And then lastly, it is safer for us. There's no way that we can squat as much weight as we could for 5 reps with a 5-second descent than we could for one specific rep. And when we look at risk versus reward, that's going to give us more bang for our buck. The second principle we look at is we look at broad fitness. So when we created our benchmarks, we wanted to look at creating the most broad and inclusive level of fitness possible that's translatable to your everyday life. And so if you needed to, go long distances, I used these examples the other day, but let's say that you needed to be on your feet for 30 minutes to an hour to potentially 5 hours walking through Disney World. We want to train energy systems within our training, but also test them within our benchmarks to make sure that you're competent and capable of doing that. Sure, we're not training for 90 minutes and 2 hours and stuff like that, but we can see these things through training for 30 minutes, where you see with like our benchmark grit. If you needed to, sprint really fast and potentially save your dog from running in the street where there's ongoing cars, right? Testing our 5-rep front squat, or testing our 5-rep press, or testing that kind of anaerobic, that those fast twitch fibers, that's going to help us in realms like that. Middle distance style stuff, interval style stuff, work to rest. These are going to build the healthiest and most sustainable broad fitness approach. Our thought behind that is a jack of all trades and a master of none, right? We're not training to be specific powerlifters. We're not training to be bodybuilders, or we're not training to be endurance runners. We're trying to be as fit and as capable as possible, and in the process, look, feel, and function at our best. So that's pretty much principle number 2. And then principle number 3 is we want to give you guys a good balance of what you want, but also what you need. At the end of the day, this training has to be fun. And sometimes there is, I would say more times than not, there's rhyme and reason behind what we do. But sometimes it's just fun to put a combination of running and front squats together to train this specific energy system that's going to help us improve X, Y, and Z within our everyday life. So in overview, number 1, we don't believe in 1-rep maxes, and we believe wholeheartedly in tempo strength work. And that's what's helped us create our benchmarks, but also help us create our training every single week, every single day that you guys see at the gym. Secondly is broad and inclusive fitness. We want to make sure that we're good in the short distance, the middle distance, the long distance. We want to be a jack of all trades, a master of none. However, we do one-on-one training with some of our clients who do want to be a master of something, whether it is run a half marathon or it is get their first pull-up. Sure, we need to do more dedicated and specific work to areas like that. And those are definitely services that are supplementary to the foundation of our GPP program. And then lastly, at the end of the day, the training's got to be fun. It's got to get you exciting. It's got to get you excited about training. It's got to get you desiring to come into the gym every single day. And I think we do a pretty dang good job doing that. And those are the 3 principles that helped us create our benchmarks, but also 3 principles that help us drive our training. And lastly, very, very proud to tell you, and this is hard for most gyms to say, all of our group leaders, all of our coaches, the foundation of their training is the exact same workouts that you guys do every single day, because we like to eat our own cooking, right? We would not tell you, encourage you, or suggest you do anything that we wouldn't do ourselves. So I think that was pretty good and pretty efficient. I don't think, Aaron, you got anything to add to that? He's speechless. Okay, guys.
Sure, you hit the nail on the head.
There you go. Few minutes passed, but some great topics covered. Just a reminder, we host our monthly support call every final Thursday of the month at 3:30 p.m. Coach Aaron and I love doing this. We love talking about any health, fitness, wellness, longevity, sleep, stress, nutrition, exercise topics that you want to throw our way. And if we don't have the answers like you saw here, we're going to dig and find the answers. We love educating ourselves as much as we like educating you guys. Our next one is going to be end of June, which will be June 30th at 3:30 p.m. And I'm excited to tell you guys that shortly after June 30th in July, we'll be running our Recalibrate Challenge, where Coach Arian and I will likely be coming to you a little bit more frequently than once a month for our summer 5-week team challenge. All right, guys, you guys make it a great rest of your Thursday. We'll see you around the gym later this week and catch you guys on the next support call.